Well, it's Friday the 3rd of July. July! This is episode 2026 of 301 Permanently Moved Online, a personal podcast 301 seconds in length, written, recorded, and edited in 1 hour by me at the J-Mo. I finished up writing an essay on cultural fracking, dispatches from the content mines this week. I have no idea if it will be published, but I'm glad I've submitted it. If you're new around here, I'll point you to my essay, Craving Canon, on my blog for context, link in the show notes. The theme of the issue is extraction, so I pushed the metaphor of cultural fracking a little further than I've done previously and took it to its conclusion, toxic sediment. But before I get to that, since finishing the essay, 4 separate threads have been attempting to entwine themselves in my mind over the last couple of days. The first, all the 1940s radio plays/shows I've been listening to during lockdown. The second, the UK media class is patting itself on its back for tackling racism by editing or removing blackface from a show that was made only 10 years ago. The people who greenlit those shows and thought it was acceptable at the time are still working in the organisation, presumably. The third, Jeanette Ing's 2019 Campbell Award speech, where she said that the tone of science fiction that still haunts the genre to this day is sterile, male, and white, exhorting in the ambitions of imperialists and colonisers, settlers, and industrialists. And lastly, copyright. Toxic sediment is what I'm calling the tailings of the last 100 years of the culture industry. We have these vast archives of material from the 20th century, all under copyright. If you're someone like Disney, you can just buy the whole of Marvel Comics and its back catalogue and frack the best material into fuel for a movie series in 2020. I can feel myself in danger of launching into a copyleft rant from 2003. Plus I've talked about how we should be telling shared tales together rather than fixed stories elsewhere. So, instead, let's say that in my head, when I now think of the 20th century recorded culture, I picture something like Onkalo, the deep geological repository for spent nuclear fuel in Finland, vast underground vaults of potentially hazardous material secured for life of the author plus 70 years. But for the rest of us, these vast archives are, in general, inaccessible to the general public. We are unable to remix, reboot, or reinterpret the material. We can only explore. As such, during lockdown, I've been spelunking on archive.org again, listening to old radio shows. You may remember me talking about Speed Gibson years ago in episode 1815. So I listened to X-1, a half-hour science fiction radio drama series that was broadcast from 1955 to 1958, with many of its stories being taken directly from Astounding Science Fiction magazine. I remind you again of Ing's sterile, male and white comment if you want to dive into that for yourself. Also, I've listened to the first few episodes of Bright Star from 1952, a radio drama about the comings and goings of a struggling newspaper called Hillsdale Morning Star. The main character is an idealist star reporter who often conflicts with his editor over the stories. The radio dramas. Radio dramas as a genre are really engaging. But the show that's blown my mind in the last few weeks is called The 10th Man.
The 10th man is the 1 man in 10 in your community who will need emotional guidance. Yes, 1 out of every 10 persons in this country needs or will need some form of psychiatric care or treatment. What kind of treatment are they getting in your community?
The first episode tells the story of activist Dorothy Dix and her commitment to the help and care of mentally ill people in America and abroad. Born in April 1802, Dorothy Dix exposed the horrors of the mental asylums of the day when mentally ill people were beaten, chained, and locked away. While some of the details of the show haven't aged well, it's an amazing format and interesting show. The dramatizations are effective in creating empathy and quickly build an understanding of others' situations that are very different from one's own. Each episode deals with a particular area of mental health, ranging from children's issues to issues dealing with the elderly, and covered topics around mental illness ranging from depression, loneliness, social phobias, and even discrimination against people who have received mental health treatment. It's a fascinating time capsule and is very interesting in the context of post-World War II, the GI Bill, and America's social welfare movement at the time. Listening to all those radio shows makes me think about podcasting as a medium. Currently, only 10% of the UK population listens to 1 podcast a week, so there is still huge room for growth. There's also lots of room for innovation, inspiration being found for me amongst the toxic sediment of the 20th century. The 10th Man, for example, has a 13 to 14 minute running length and is a drama. I hope as the medium continues to grow, there will be an explosion in formats and people experimenting with new or old forms, lengths and approaches. And I hope this show is contributing to that in some way too.
What's the matter, Mum? I didn't think it was like this.